Good evening, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of Beer Rating with Sean Connors. As you can see, the beer I got this week, it's quite a colorful little number. I'll break it out here. There you go. So this one is, long name, the Chocolate Manifesto Triple Chocolate Milk Stout. So it's a stout, more specifically, it's a milk stout. We'll talk about that in a minute. The name of the brewery is the Flying Monkey Craft Brewery, and they're out of Barrie, Ontario, which is about an hour or so to Toronto. The company brewery established in 2004, I believe, under a different name, if I'm correct, and then under this current name, the Flying Monkey Craft Brewery, in 2008. So it's a triple chocolate milk stout. So obviously the triple, there's three different types of chocolate. There's cocoa nibs, cocoa powder, and chocolate malt. And obviously they say it's a bit of a chocolate flavor aroma. Also little notes of espresso and toasted tobacco, which is kind of different. Now, if you remember back in one of my early ones, I was mentioning how, a lot of people, they put your glasses in the freezer, how you shouldn't do that. But I was saying what you should do is give it a quick cold water rinse just before you brew. Well, recently I converted my dry bar to a wet bar, actually, as of today. And I actually put a glass rinser. So before most videos, you're probably going to see me reach over and you're probably wondering what I'm doing. I'm just giving it a quick rinse with cold water, and that basically any dust or anything, it kind of takes it out of the glass. And also it gives your glass a brief chill. And as I said, you shouldn't put them in the freezer. If you go back to one of my earlier videos, I talked about that. So I'm just going to give it a rinse. I'll actually put a video or some photos on the Facebook page so you can see what it looks like if anybody's interested. And with that being said, I can't obviously put photos on the YouTube, so if you're not following my Facebook group, by all means, give it a look. Add your name. Okay, so I'm just going to pour this up, and then the talk I'm going to have today is just a little bit about stouts and a little bit about chocolate stouts. So obviously it says stout. It's obviously a dark ale. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. It's an ale, and anybody who's ever had a stout, it's normally either black, dark, brown. And they say Guinness, if you go to the Guinness factory, they say Guinness is not actually black or brown. It's actually a dark, dark, dark red. And they actually give you a little example, and you can see it's actually true, believe it or not. So let's see, it's a typical Guinness color, really dark. A nice little creamy head. Ooh, I actually get the chocolate. The last couple of stouts I've had on the program, they've been more coffee than anything else. I'm not a coffee drinker, so they weren't a big hit with me. That's kind of interesting, actually. I think I actually get it all. I get the chocolate, I get the little bit of espresso, I get the little bit of tobacco. It's different. I'm not even sure, quite honestly, if it's a different good or a different bad. Another thing about this, it's actually 10% alcohol, so it's an extra strong dark ale, they'd say, and it's actually got a little bit of a bite to it. I'm actually intrigued, I guess is the word. So I'm not sure if I liked it or not. It's also got another flavor to it, and I can't put my finger on it. Some type of shooter that I had in the past. I don't know. It's kind of right there, but it's definitely got alcohol. You can taste alcohol. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about stouts in general, and then a little bit about milk stout, which this is. Okay, so as I mentioned, a stout is a dark ale, and normally they say it has roasted characters, which is normally of either dark chocolate or coffee, and this actually has both. The name stout itself, in the 1700s, stout basically just meant higher alcohol. It wasn't a particular style of beer. Any beer could be considered a stout. Like you could have a stout IPA, which just meant it was a strong IPA. However, it was normally, this term came to do with porters. Porters are very similar to stouts. I'll talk about porters at another time, but they're very similar. And when the stout came along, it was actually known as a stout porter. So the porters at the time, they were lower in alcohol, and they made a stronger porter, and they call it a stout porter, which basically just meant it was a strong porter. And that was about late 1700s or so. And then in the 1800s, porter actually, they went down. They weren't really popular anymore, whereby stouts kind of went up. So the name actually went from stout porter to just stout, and then it became more famous, I guess, than its parent, I guess you could say, the porter. I've never had a porter. I'm actually adding that to my list. I think it's almost like I'm not a liquor drinker, like a chocolate white Russian type of thing. Some type of shooter, some type of liqueur. I'm thinking like B-52. I can't really put my finger on it. It's different. I'm going to give that. And actually, the Flying Monkey, just looking at their website, their thing is being different beers, and this is right up there. Honestly, I don't think it's one I'd buy again, but I'm glad I'm trying it. All right, back to my little conversation about stouts. There's different types of stout. Irish stout, obviously, everybody knows Guinness. Oatmeal stout, we had one of those. Milk stout, we have here. An imperial stout, which basically it's a high alcohol stout. A chocolate stout, and finally an oyster stout. An oyster stout actually contains oysters. I've never had one of them. Hopefully someday I can find one. With that being said, they call it a milk stout, but I guess it could also be considered a chocolate stout because there's actually triple chocolate. There's actually oatmeal in it as well, so I guess it could be considered an oatmeal stout. And also with 10% alcohol, in my opinion, it could also be called imperial stout. But they label it as a chocolate milk stout, so there you go. So as you can hear, the cat's in the background again, as per usual. Now, the more I drink it, I'm kind of not quite my cup of tea. It's different. I'm glad I'm trying it, but I don't know. It's going to be a hard one to finish, I think. Oh, but I know I will finish it. All right, so a little bit about milk stouts. Milk stouts, they're also known as cream or sweet stouts. There's actually no milk in it whatsoever. But their brew has additional lactose, also known as milk sugars, and that's where it comes to. The milk sugars actually, for whatever reason, in the brewery process, they're not fermented like other sugars. And from that, it adds body, sweetness, and they say a creamy mouthfeel. If you ever had a Guinness, you'll know what I mean about body. It's a body-full beer. It's not a good explanation. And the creamy mouthfeel just kind of feels like creamy milk, like a glass of milk. I think it was 1907 in England. The brewery was Mackerson Breweries. They were the first ones to do a milk stout. And actually, it was a low alcohol. I think it was like 3%. And they actually put a milk churn on the label. And that's, I guess, how the whole milk stout came about. And then after World War II, they became popular again. As I said, in the 1800s, the stouts and porters were like the drink of the day. At one point, that stout was considered a healthy drink. Lactating mothers, they were encouraged to drink stouts as long with athletes. And Guinness, I think Guinness, one of their ads from back in the day, if you ever do the tour in Dublin, there was one of their posters, I can't remember, it's Guinness is healthy for you. I think it has a mother or something like that, but there you go. Just fast forward a little bit, World War II in Britain, they had food rationing, and as a result of that, for whatever reason, they were no longer able to have the word milk on the bottle, or anything would think that people would think there was actually milk in. I guess they were rationing food, and they didn't want people to think they were actually using some of the rationed milk for beer, so they actually took it off the labels, and they weren't allowed to promote it, I guess. Since then, it's strong alcohol. The more I drink it, holy jump, it's almost like drinking a glass of liqueur or something. Alright, back to milk stouts. It actually, in the UK is where it started. Over the years, it kind of waned in the UK. However, other parts of the world, it actually became more popular. I guess South Africa, specifically, there are big hits with milk stouts. Many milk stouts actually follow the Guinness. And Guinness, with a normal beer on draft, they use CO2 to pour it. Guinness actually use CO2 and nitrogen. So there you go. So that's my talk about stouts and milk stouts, and I gotta give this a rating. And once again, it's from Flying Monkeys Craft Brewery out of Barrie, Ontario. The Chocolate Manifesto Triple Chocolate Milk Stout, 10% alcohol. My rating. I'm sad to say I think this is going to be my lowest rating yet. I said before, a 1 is, oh my god, I can't finish it. I'm not one to not finish a beer. A 2 is, yeah, you know, not my cup of tea, but I'll finish it. And quite honestly, I was actually, when I first tasted, I figured, okay, this is about a 3. But I know I'm going to struggle to finish this. It's strong, and it's, like I said, it's almost like a shooter or a liqueur. It's got the chocolate taste, the chocolate aroma, but I'm having a hard one getting it down. So I think I'm going to give this one, as I said, I'm kind of sad to say, I think I'm going to give it a 2. I almost tempted to give it a 2.5, but I know this is going to be a hard one to finish. So the Flying Monkey, I'd look for, you know, if somebody wants to try it the weekend, especially if you like chocolate and you want something different. And if you're a liqueur drinker or liquor, you might even like it even more so. Like I said, for me, the only alcohol I really drink is beer, and I like Guinness, and this is just a little bit too strong, and the flavor is a little bit too much for me. So there you go, that's my rating at 2.0. And I just noticed on the cap of the beer, on the other hand, you have different fingers. No idea what that means, but the Flying Monkey, they're all about being different. So there you go, folks. Until next beer, enjoy responsibly. Cheers.